What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with your DFS preview for the CJ Cup. Couple hours late here. I apologize. As many of you know, we're in the process of buying a new home, selling a home. I was at a home inspection all day, so I'm basically like 5 hours behind. So my apologies. A couple things you need to know about this week. CJ Cup, they're headed over to Korea. There's only 74 or 78 players in the field. It is a no-cut event. What else do you need to know? Oh, lock is at Wednesday. I believe it's 6 p.m. Eastern, because I think it's 3 Pacific here. So 6 p.m. Eastern. So you're going to have to get your lineups in a hurry. You don't have that Wednesday night, Thursday morning tinker like you normally would. So keep that in mind for this week. And we don't have any shot link data. So only 2 years of history at Nine Bridges, which is the course this is being held at. That, along with the fact that there was no shot link data, I do not have a regression model for this week for course key stats. So I think it's going to be ball strikers. Around the green might come into play a little bit more than usual, but no cut events are kind of a beast of their own. So we'll look for birdie makers, we'll look for kind of the studs, and we'll go from there. But that's the stuff you need to know off the top. Let's just jump straight into the cheat sheet. All right, lineups dropped, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys over $10,000. That is something you don't see every day. Usually it's 5 or 6, but led off by Justin Thomas at 11,700 and Brooks Koepka at 11,400. I have to tell you, and I tweeted this out, I was a little bit surprised to see that Justin Thomas is the betting favorite here. Maybe I shouldn't be, because I am quite honestly a big fan of Justin Thomas. I think he is set to have a massive year. But I usually the industry doesn't look that way, and Brooks Koepka is here, and I was just expecting Brooks to be 5-1, and that was going to be it, but I was wrong. So Justin Thomas, 11,700 on an absolute tear. He's got the win at the BMW Championship, the third at the Tour Championship, and a 4th place this year in his first start this year at the Safeway. Won this event in 2018. There is nothing not to like about Justin Thomas here if you can get him into your lineups. I do think there's an interesting contrarian play to be made, a little pivot play to be made to Brooks Koepka. So Koepka, obviously, great player. I don't think I need to describe that to you. He goes out, he misses the cut at the Shriners. He didn't play horrible, but he didn't really play well. He is your defending champion here, and it's one of these situations. Hey, he had a little bit of a procedure on his knee done in the offseason, probably shaking off the rust, probably missed some practice time. Usually in these no-cut events, you really like to get the studs because you guarantee them 4 rounds. It's one of these situations where they're just never out of it. So Brooks Koepka, who was 8-1 to win last week, or last time he teed it up at the Shriners, 8-1 this week in half the field, much easier at a course that he's the defending champion at. I think it makes for a pretty interesting pivot if you want to get off of Justin Thomas at the top. Outside of that, I think Hideki's fine. I probably won't get to him. I think Tommy Fleetwood's okay. I think he's a little bit safer because he gains in all 4 strokes gains categories, does Tommy, and he's been playing well on the European Tour. I think Colin Morikawa's fine, but I probably won't get to him. Victor Hovland is the one that's super crazy here. So let me pull up his strokes gain database, and we'll go over to tournaments, and we will pull up my main man Victor here. And what you're going to see is this. I kind of, tweeted this out or kind of teased it a little bit. I only have 9 measured tournaments on Victor, and because he's obviously so young, and we don't have Masters data because it doesn't have shot link data, but he has gained strokes in both off the tee and approach in every single one. So for him to do that every single time, plus the fact that he's done it 9 in a row. I didn't go through the entire database, but I was trying to find other golfers who have had a 9 tournament stretch in which they have gained strokes both off the tee and on approaches. And so I went to the guys that I thought would be the easy ones, right? So Rahm did it. He did 11 in a row between October 2016, the Safeway, and the 2017 Dean and DeLuca. And then Rory did it also for 11 in a row right here, which is between, that would be 2018 Dell Technologies Championship and 2019 PGA Championship, but like Dustin Johnson has never done it. A lot of the other studs out there I couldn't find for it. So my point being that Hovland is legitimately an elite ball striker on this tour. His around the green game is tough. He's not very good, quite frankly, but he'll figure that out. And, if you go back to the cheat sheet here, you look at Hovland, he just never stops. I mean, a 10th at the Greenbrier already this year. He's now got, 6 top 15 finishes in his last 7 starts. The kid's just an absolute stud muffin. So really excited to get to him. And 10,500, it's steep, but he is legit, man. So I'm kind of cool with that. And then Jordan Spieth at 10,000, I won't pay. I don't think I need to beat this up too much. I mean, if you go and look at Jordan Spieth and look at him from 2019 on the, where is he? Whoops, that's Jordan Smith. Jordan Spieth on the strokes gained database, and you just pump in January here. I mean, he loses 0.3 of a stroke off the tee. He loses on approaches. His putter is magical, and he's a pretty good player around the greens. I don't think that's always going to continue. And basically, his comps statistically are almost like if you look at strokes gained total, his comps are basically Zach Johnson, Dylan Fratelli, Ryan Palmer. Like Fratelli is 60-1 in this field and costs. Let's see. I don't even know where he's at here. He can't be that low. Is Fratelli is he in this field? Yeah, here he is. He costs 8,000. Ryan Palmer, who actually has a 5th place finish here, is 7,200, and he's 100-1 to win this golf tournament, or he has a 3rd place finish last year. So you have guys who have actually played better at 9 Bridges, who are statistically somewhat similar to Jordan Spieth last season, yet Spieth rocks a $10,000 price tag because his name is Jordan Spieth. It's just a really tough pill to swallow. I will be late on Jordan. I don't care. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Here's one of the situations where my model and my heart don't agree. I mean, Jason Day projects very well here, obviously because of the fifth place finish last year and the 11th place in 2018. But Jason Day is kind of a guy that I'm probably going to be late on with Jordan Spieth. Jordan has provided a lot of cover for Jason Day and his decline over the last year because he's basically gaining half of the strokes total in 2019 than he did in previous seasons. He's losing on approach. He's just becomes so much more reliant on his putter, which is always a little bit of a scary thought. He's had 2 top 10s since the Masters. So Jason Day is a really tough trigger to pull there, and I won't be getting him. Further down the list, Cam Smith, $9,000. Playing well, coming off a 13th at the Shriners. He and Pat Perez are the only 2 guys who have top 10s in both editions of the CJ Cup. I don't even know. We saw Pat Perez withdraw last week, so I'll assume he's going to play this week until we find out otherwise, but that's a pretty scary thought. Pat Perez, I guess, could be a decent pivot play. He's only $7,500, but that's a lot of risk for a guy who basically needed to gain like 9 strokes putting to finish 3rd at the Shriners, but he's got 2 really good finishes here, and then he just withdrew from Houston. So I don't know what's going on with Pat Perez. We'll have to keep an eye on some of the news and see what happens from there. Corey Connors at 78, I do think is interesting. He's going to be always an elite ball striker. He's got a 13th place finish at the Safeway. That could be something to hang your hat on. Oh, and then, shout out to, I have not watched Mayo's show yet, Pat Mayo. I don't even know if it's out yet. But I assume he's going to talk about Luke List at 7,000. And this is one of the few times a year that I can actually probably endorse this instead of just absolutely loving Luke List like we've seen Pat do in the past. But, there is no one like Luke List in terms of how he actually finished last season. So I'm just going to flip over to the player profile really quickly and see if I can grab Luke List. And he basically missed 7 or 8. He missed basically 8 straight cuts to end his season last year. The only thing he didn't miss the cut on was the Northern Trust, where he finished 77th when that was a field of 77. Like he might have finished dead last there. Like he was either the only thing he didn't miss the cut in. He finished almost last in. And then even to start this year, he was brutally missed the cut at Sanderson Farms, missed the cut at Safeway, but has turned it around just a little bit. 13th place finish at the Shriners, 28th place finish in Houston. Really good off the tee in both of those, that's his big weapon, right? And you can see when you go back and look at his missed cuts, what did he do? He lost 2.8 strokes off the tee, gained 2, lost a half, gained a half, was neutral, lost 2, lost a half. Like his biggest weapon is that driver, and if that's not going right for him, he's in big trouble because he has other flaws in his game, like the putter. But we've seen from him the last 2 weeks now, really good off the tee. Last week, even more impressive as he gained another 2.5 on approaches. We saw his usual around the green and putting game, but that's still a pretty good situation for Luke List at only $7,000, where he had a 5th place finish 2 years ago, which is the only time he played this event. So I could really kind of get on board with Luke List in this type of situation. I think Adam Long is super sneaky. $6,700. He took 2 weeks off. We didn't see him at the Shriners. We didn't see him in Houston. And I've been playing him a lot this swing season, and he's got a 14th place finish and 223rds. And he's a pretty class player. Like, compared to the rest of these guys down here, this is like the time part of the field where it's like, hey, this guy won one event and has done nothing else. Adam Long, Nate Lashley, CT Pan, Keith Mitchell. It's funny that they threw them all down here. Kevin Tway. But to me, Adam Long has played a lot better recently than the rest of those guys. So I really do like going back to Adam Long here as an option at only $6,800. All right, and then one last thing I want to talk about here, because I want to make this a quick video. I'm already behind. It's an early start. I want to get this out to you guys as quickly as possible. But one thing I do want to bring up is around the Korean players that we're going to see this week, because every time the PGA Tour goes, somewhere that's, not the usual schedule, or they go somewhere like Malaysia or like Mexico, it's always like, oh my gosh, there's locals that are going to be playing there. They know the course. They're so good. They're only $6,200. Like, we hear it literally constantly. I went back and I looked back the last 2 years, and I tweeted this out, so I'll show you that tweet now. The last 2 years of finishes for Korean players at the CJ Cup. And I don't need to read these off to you, but basically last year, there was a 4th place finish and an 11th place finish. There was one guy in the 20s, 2 guys in the 30s, 2 guys in the 40s, 3 guys in the 50s, 3 guys in the 60s, and 3 guys in the 70s. The year before that that was 2018. Then last year was actually even worse. These actually might be backwards. I don't know. But either way, 2019. Then the other year was nobody was better than 23rd. There was 3 guys in the 40s, 2 guys in the 60s. Like, if you're watching this, or if you're watching on the video, you can see it. But if you're listening, it's basically just a bunch of really poor finishes. I mean, what I'm trying to get at here is not necessarily fading Koreans. That's a pretty silly take to have. But I do think that there is a trend in the DFS world for you to be like, oh, I think I have this edge because, it happens all the time. Like, this college player plays golf here. This is so-and-so's hometown or home country or whatever. And it's really enticing to try to go out and grab, Wee Kim at 6,200 or KH Lee at 63 or, I don't know who else is out here, KJ Choi, and just be like play the Korean narrative. And it's not just subject to Koreans. Like, this happens all the time. So what I'm trying to show you is like, the 12 or 13 kind of sponsored exemptions or guys that are going to get into this field, based on sponsorship or nationality, like, they might not be good plays. And it just really makes me want to play studs even more because, it's already like 74 people in the field, and now you're going to cut out probably another 10 that don't have a chance to win this thing, as history is kind of dictated and as kind of skill set would dictate. Makes me like the top guys even more. It's now like a 60-man field, and they're guaranteed to get 4 rounds. So, just throwing that out there, do your homework, do your research before you start making crazy type, flyer bets down at the bottom, because there are some really good PGA Tour players that we see week in and week out down there that I think you're going to be able to roster instead. So there you go. Quick video for this week. I will get this out as quickly as possible. Looking forward to hearing from you. Tweet me. It's at RickRunGood, or leave a comment below. See you.